Megan Engelberg, and I am the District 67 Executive APT President. And I want to welcome you all here today for this special morning as we have the privilege of hearing from Dr. Erin Leonard and her administrative team, who she will introduce to you shortly. Dr. Leonard is in her first year here at Lake Forest High School as the principal, and we could not be more excited to have her. Prior to her arrival in Lake Forest, Dr. Leonard was previously the principal of Fairfax School in Fairfax, Virginia. She is a former English teacher who taught at the high school level in Georgia and Tennessee before joining the Fairfax district in 2009. She served as assistant principal and later principal at both the high school and the middle school level in Fairfax County. Currently, Dr. Leonard lives in Lake Forest with her husband, who has recently retired from a very distinguished military career. And I also can't help but mention that she has a wonderful daughter. Where does she live? Right outside of GC. And she has a really cute dog that I've seen on social media. Dr. Leonard has brought high school instructional knowledge, transparent and meaningful communication skills, experience building, positive culture, and cultivating strong stakeholder relationships to our 115 district. But most importantly, what stands out to me is that she has brought her love and passion for teaching and her complete and total dedication to being a part of Lake Forest High School students' lives and experiences. If you follow her on Instagram, and if you don't, you should, you know that she is one busy lady. She is at every sporting event, play, club, extracurricular activity that happens at Lake Forest High School. She is constantly celebrating the students and interacting with families and their community. She is truly one proud scout, and we are truly so lucky to have her and her team here today. So welcome, Erin.
I don't think I'm on. Gosh, I think I'm done. I can just sit down and introduce everyone, right? That was great. It's always a little embarrassing, too, to hear about yourself, because you just think, gosh, I'm a teacher who wants to do great things for kids, and that's what I'll always be. So anyway, with that, I just want to get started and introduce myself a little bit more than you've already heard. And if you actually watch the video that I kicked off in the town hall meeting at the beginning of the year when I was first appointed, you'll see some of these slides repeating themselves, because it's the core of who I am, and I think that's important for you to hear too, as parents who are rising into high school. And I've been in your position as a parent. I've been in this position both as a middle school principal, welcoming parents in when they were nervous about their students entering middle school, and then also helping students to transition to high school, and then as a high school principal, welcoming them into high school. So I've been at all ends of the spectrum, if you will. So I know where you are, especially if this is your first high school student rising into Lake Forest High School. How many of you, this is your first? Wow. We've got you. If you came to the Scout experience last night, I think you know that we've got your back. We have lots of activities and lots of athletic opportunities and classes and courses for your students to find success, and we'll talk about those today. But a little bit about me. I just really believe this position is a privilege. I mean it when I say I'm a teacher with a title and a different title. I came into education because I have a passion for teaching and learning, and I have a passion for students. I'll never forget that. So I believe that school leadership is about loving what you do, loving your community, loving your students, loving your staff. It's about a service to the community. When I'm no longer serving, I need to be checked on that. When you feel like what I'm doing is no longer a service, I need for you to feel empowered to come and talk to me, let me know where I'm falling short so that I can better serve the community. I'm committed to Lake Forest High School. I'm committed to this community. I've moved into it. I live about a mile from the high school, for good or for bad. A couple cold mornings I've been driving to school, twice now, and I've pulled my car over because I've seen a student trekking to school, freezing cold, and I'm like, do you want to call your parent and see if you can ride with me? Both times, no! God, no! That's okay, sorry. And then the other day someone said, you should have candy, and be like, well, I have candy, and I would never do that, but I'm totally committed. And you know, I see this cold child walking to school, and the mom in me is like, oh, you poor thing, get into the heat. So if your student is walking to school, just tell them. If she pulls over, it's okay. And then also just staying humble. I'm not perfect. I think in my interview the whole time, every single panel that I sat with, I said, I'm not perfect. I just work really hard to try to see all sides, all aspects, and make decisions. But they're never going to be perfect decisions always. But I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to listen to feedback and try to get better for you. So those are the four major prongs of what I believe being a school leader is. staying humble, loving what you do, loving your community, staying committed to it, and remembering that it's a privilege to serve. So hopefully you all have familiarized yourself with the mission statement at Lake Forest High School. And I think this is really the core of the work that we do and the core of how we program for students and how we create opportunities. So I'll just take a moment for you to check this out. And the mission statement's actually in the center. Inspire the passion to learn, the insight to know oneself, and the courage to make a difference. I think those are powerful words. And through that, we really have three major prongs that we're focused on improving as far as our staff learning, as well as improving outcomes for students. And those are around really thinking about authentic assessment and meaningful learning and assessment differently. I'm actually going to engage some of our teacher leaders on Friday in a conversation around final exams, the why behind final exams. Why have we always done it that way? We see a lot of school districts, even around us, moving away from traditional final exams just because of the stress they create. So the teachers, the staff, they want to engage in this conversation. They want to look at the peer school districts. We want to have a wider conversation around, is what we're doing really making sense anymore, or do we need to think differently? Social emotional learning, and that's a big part of the insight to know oneself. We actually have a team that's working on thinking about wellness, staff wellness, community wellness, student wellness in new and exciting ways. And I think that Dr. Sass has been leading that work now for a couple years, but they're really starting to hone in on some goals. And then inclusion. We have been talking for some time in Lake Forest prior to my arrival about a shared ninth grade experience. And thinking about the students that come from Lake Bluff Middle School, thinking about the students that come from Deer Path Middle School, St. Mary's. I've met with these feeders, and the Montessori Academy as well. I've met with the feeder principals. There are varied experiences coming from all four of these environments. And I think there are even some private schools, Country Day School as well. So we're thinking about what does it look like, because we're trying to place students into ninth grade classes. What does it look like to create common experiences and common learning experiences in ninth grade? Because it's very difficult for us to place when their learning experiences have been very different. It's very difficult for us to purposefully place students and say, you should be in the English 1 honors track. You should be in the World 1 honors track, because your experience at Lake Bluff to Deer Path to St. Mary's has been different. So can we create opportunities for honors level learning experiences in ninth grade so that we can get to know the student, build some of those fundamental skills in honors, and then let them sort of blossom as they move into 10th and 11th and 12th grade. This was a philosophy that was started before I came. It's one that I'm getting to know a little bit more, trying to understand a little bit more, but that's something that's already been kind of baked in to the structure at Lake Forest, and I'm learning about it more and more. I know Dr. Waller can probably speak to that even more. All right, this is something that I just came in saying from day one, like, what is it? Okay, Erin, what's your vision? You see, it's just a community, a shared community. Our students, number one, most important, our staff, our parents, where everyone is seen, valued, and heard. I think those are three really powerful words, so to be seen, to be valued, and to be heard. I just wrote an email this morning where I told a parent, I think it's challenging when opinions differ, when the world feels like it's differing, but it's not impossible. I believe it's there, and you can see it in our students. I mean, you saw it last night in our students. Look at all the clubs and activities as you're walking, just the varied beliefs, the varied values, and how they could just harmonize together. It can happen in Lake Forest High School too. And I'm proud of our students because I see it in them. I'm still really getting to know, again, like with the inclusion work that has been happening, I'm getting to know some of the long-range goals and long-range work that's been in place in Lake Forest. I'm asking tough questions. I think my team will tell you that I am. Trying to think about how I connect it with what I've always understood to be teaching and learning. And it's going to be an ongoing piece to my work and my leadership this year. All right, with that, I just want to introduce a few of my team members who've come, and they're going to speak about the areas that they are actually supervising and some of the programs in those areas. Hopefully, they will give you a lot of good information. First of all, I have Dr. Alan Wallert. He is our Director of Teaching and Learning, so he will be talking about some of the programs. Dr. Patrick Sasson, who is our Director of Ed Services, and he's actually going to stand in also for Dr. Jenny Serpin, our Director of Special Services. She was unable to make it today. And then we have Ms. Ashley Malik, who is our Director of Student Activities. So all three will be presenting today on what programs are offered within their departments. And hopefully we can take a Q&A as well. Take some time for a Q&A. All right, I don't know why this slide is here. I thought I moved this slide. This is actually from the District 115 School Board Milestones, and these are the core values that they look for in the work that happens at East Campus at the high school. So if you take a look at this, a lot of these are actually represented in just our three-prong mission statement and the work that we've been doing. I'm never one of those who reads a slide directly. I learned that a long time ago. One of the things that I'm really proud of is that investment in our teachers, and especially the investment in retention. If you're following the national landscape right now, there's a crisis in education. We see teachers leaving at alarming rates, and they're being recruited by private companies. There are a lot of online private companies recruiting educators. You see administrators leaving at alarming rates. So it's really important to me that I'm with the teachers, I'm listening to the teachers, listening to their concerns, and I'm sharing those with the community, listening to the parents, listening to the students, and bringing us together around what are our shared beliefs, and that's that we love kids. Let's not forget that we all love our students, love what we're doing. So I'm constantly reinforcing that message with staff. We want our teachers to stay. We want our teachers to grow. And I'm just really proud of the district because they're committed to that, among other things. All right, so now Dr. Waller, teaching and learning. Do you want me to give you my?
No, I don't. I'm good.
You sure?
I'm good without it, trust me. I'm told I'm. Hopefully I don't blow your ears out. So again, I'm Alan Wallard. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning. Appreciate having the opportunity to connect with you. Erin has brought a tremendous amount of energy, and when she shared the story of rolling down her window and talking to the students, asking if they want to ride, I think the mile drive that she has shows a tremendous amount of grit as she braves the incredible snow that comes across Lake Forest and Lake Bluff communities where about, 3 weeks ago, Elisa, her administrative assistant, and I popped in her office at like 7:45, and she looked out the window and said, I can't believe we're having school today. How do you guys do this? And Elisa and I looked at each other and laughed, and we're like, Erin, there's like 2 inches of snow on the ground. So she's learning, right? You come from Virginia and you learn that we deal with a lot of snow here. So that was a great moment, and she's brought a lot of energy and a lot of positivity to the entire school community. So I really appreciate that. A couple things I want to talk about. All of our team has a lot to talk about, so I have a lot up here, and I can stay after and speak to you in greater detail about things if you have further questions. But the first thing up there really just talks about our placement process. When I got to Lake Forest High School, the district itself wasn't owning the placement process. The IDs, the instructional leaders of our departments, weren't owning the placement process. We were kind of deferring to the middle school and not really taking into account what our programs are, what our courses are, and how we can best support your student in our space. And so we really overhauled the placement process 6 years ago to be able to identify what are the quantitative and qualitative factors that help your child be the most successful in 9th grade. There was a lot of angst at first when I brought up the idea of giving the PSAT 8. I don't think a standardized test is the way to identify us as learners, but it does measure some skills that can be valuable. But it's only one data point among many. And I think you have found that the relationship and the partnership in the placement process and the scheduling process you have with Dr. Sasson's counselors shows that we really love to look at the whole child to figure out what their needs and passions are. As your children were walking through the building last night, I kept telling every parent or guardian and student that would listen to make sure that all of your kids in 9th grade and beyond take a class that fills your bucket. Take a class that gives you some passion, might involve some tactile learning, some bodily kinesthetic movement, something that maybe they don't think of when they think of going to school. People were incredulous last night that we have a guitar making class where you make a guitar and learn to play it. I mean, like, Schools don't have that. We have some really unique offerings. And so our placement process is built in a way that, again, you are able to partner with Ed Services and with us, the Office of Teaching and Learning, to make sure that your student gets a really, really diverse experience in terms of learning at Lake Forest High School. I'm so proud, and we're so lucky to have all of the things that we have there. So that's been a huge thing. Also, talking about the next level of challenge, we really want your kids, with the schedule that we adopted 6 years ago, to really make sure they take classes that are going to tap into their interests. Even by freshman year, find something. Maybe your son or daughter really likes photography. Let them take a photography class. Let them take that guitar class. So having that next level of challenge, what we mean by that is if and when your child experiences success or, this is important, the motivation to try to take a next level of class, a more rigorous class, find ways to encourage them to do that, and then it's our job to support them, both in the class and beyond. And I think that we work really hard to do that. There is not a mindset at our school that only those kids belong in that next level of challenge. Again, if your child has the willingness to try it, we want to find ways to say yes so that they can try those classes and have those experiences of higher order thinking, critical reading, critical writing, and so on. So we really want to encourage that. Just a little statistic that I'm really proud of. About 10 years ago, about 23% of our students accessed AP, and now we're about 46.5. Now, I don't think AP is the indicator of next level of challenge. It's one, it's not the only one, but it's just an example that we want our students to expose themselves to rigor while also having that creative outlet at the same time. A little bit, one of the things that's really helped to know more about how to meet the needs of your students as learners has been the articulation that we've done across the aforementioned areas to make sure we understand what is taught at the middle schools and for the middle schools to understand what we teach at the 9th grade level. So a lot of that is about conversations and relationships. We've identified, I didn't have time to put it in the slide, but we've identified 9 different characteristics or traits with all of the area middle schools that we value in terms of that partnership. And so we're basically making our way through it. And it's probably, to be honest with you, about a 10-year window to be able to really build powerful articulation to make sure that from middle school to high school, your children's needs are being met. Schoology, I got to Lake Forest in my first year, and there was no learning management system, or there were like 4. And so if you have older kids who are now in college, you would remember that like your kid could go to a class and there'd be no learning management system. And then they'd go to one and there'd be a different one. And they'd go to 8th period and there'd be another one. And that's not right for kids. And so we did a pilot of 3 different LMSs and launched it then in 17-18. And I was very excited when 67 followed along because it is a great way not only to communicate with students and families, it's a great place to store materials. We're really using Schoology now as a launch pad. You'll notice your student will say when they get to Lake Forest, we use it as an assessment tool. There's a lot of tools for learning that you can actually do with Schoology. It's not just a place to like store stuff and to communicate with families and students. So we're really, really proud of that work. Erin was mentioning inclusive practices before. There's 3 prongs to inclusion. One is the sense of membership. Someone told me a couple weeks ago, that means you got asked to the dance, okay? But the sense of participation is when you go to the dance, someone asks you to dance. And that success and that experience that you have that's a positive one is someone actually asks you what song you want played at the dance. And so when you look at inclusive practices in our space, our world history and geography class that did not exist, we had 4 different classes at the freshman social studies level, really hard to deliver a guaranteed and viable curriculum around skills when you have 4 different offerings. And so we built the earned honors component in there so students could all get exposure in the same space, right? Membership, but then participate to the degree they want to around the skills that we want to teach. And so there's been a lot of work around that, and there's more to do, but I think that we have a really, just a positive environment. I love walking through the cafeteria and the commons and see all the students that know each other. And I was in a meeting at 7:45 this morning with a social studies teacher who was talking about how some of the highest achieving kids she had in a space were benefiting working with students who had some more severe learning differences than the high achieving kids, and the empathy that they were learning by working together in cooperative learning groups while still having rigor. The last two things, real quick. So our resource centers, I was mentioning up on the second bullet point about that next level of challenge. We have resource centers for the different departments so that if your child is struggling in class, sure, they can hopefully connect with a teacher during PLT time on Wednesdays. I think that's incredibly powerful leverage, right? But we actually have resource centers that during their planning period or before or after school, not planning period, excuse me, study hall, or before or after school, they can go to, and they can work with another adult or another teacher to be able to ask clarifying questions. One of the biggest things I talk to parents of freshmen about is teaching your child to be their own advocate. And that is hard. I mean, as a dad of 3 kids, I know how hard it is to teach them to be advocates for themselves, and in high school you have to do that. And sometimes it's like, you know, my science class is hard today. I don't understand it. I'm gonna go to the Science Resource Center tomorrow, and I'm gonna ask for help. That's a huge step for a 14-year-old to be able to do. And finally, summer school. Some of you grabbed some, I have some goldenrod pieces of paper. If you are looking for some summer school opportunities for your incoming 9th graders, we have a lot of enrichment opportunities for them. And what those are really around is if you think your child is going to be entering a math class or a science class or an English class, and you want them to kind of get some of those foundational skills like that exposure before they walk into school, you know your child is a learner, right? If you think they benefit from that, then reach out to me, shoot me an email, call me, and I can kind of help you. And of course, our counseling department can always help you decide if that's what your child needs. So, all right, thank you. I'll stay after to answer any questions you have about any of these topics. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see some familiar faces this morning, having seen some of you last night. I am Patrick Sass, and I'm the Director of Educational Services. I really do enjoy the opportunity to come and speak before you. You've done this for the last couple of years, and it's an opportunity to put some names with faces, but also to really hear some questions and provide some reassurance. Could you raise your hand if you were at the Scout experience last night? Excellent, and hopefully that's tangential with those of you who are first-time parents of students coming through our high school. I know that that first-time students through the high school, I had the benefit of being a Lake Bluff resident, so my students came through the high school, and I was in my current position, so I knew the end of the line, I knew the start of the line, I knew the whole spectrum of what to experience, and that's an unfair advantage I had, but I never make the assumption that parents know what this is going to be like from the get-go, their first time around. And so our hopes is that last night was an opportunity for you to have a glimpse into kind of first of all, the vibe of the high school and the passion and the spirit of the high school. 6 or 7 years ago, prior to my being in this current position, there was a curriculum night where it was the opportunity to hear from curriculum, what courses could be taken, what the opportunities were throughout the course of a 4-year plan, and a smidge around activities and sports and kind of the outside the classroom experience. And around the time that I was moving into this position, but the work had been, the seeds had been planted, we really said we'd like that curriculum component to be a part of this articulation night, but more importantly, we want your kids to meet our current kids. We want your kids to meet coaches and sponsors. We want your kids to see the cool spaces throughout the building and really imagine the opportunities and the possibilities that lie ahead for them. So I always say this when I speak to 8th grade parents and 8th graders: enjoy 8th grade, be the big person on campus for that year, enjoy that as a culmination of your middle school experience, but also be excited and look forward to transitioning in the fall. We hope that our communication the last few months has alleviated any stress or strain about what the next several months are going to look like. Our last night was an opportunity to kind of see the space, feel the vibe, and get to know or possibly have some conversations with some teachers or instructional directors. Most of, if not all of you, have had your registration meeting with the counselors that I have the honor to work with. There's still an opportunity to reconfigure or make a change to the courses that were selected, but know that March 3rd is our drop-dead deadline for that. Understand that we, from a Ed Services standpoint and the building leadership team, in the next 2 weeks, we will begin looking at those registration numbers. We will then begin to section our courses based on those registration numbers. and that also has staffing implications. So we need to know where our registrations are. It's crazy, but we plan for August in February, and I know sometimes it's like, well, I have to make a decision in February about what I want to do in August. There will be 2 more opportunities for reconsideration of what courses you want your son or daughter to take or they want to take, but know that going forward after March 3rd, those are based on space availability in classes, whereas now we're saying you choose what you want, we'll staff according to what you choose. But in April and in August, we can't open another section of a course or hire a teacher because students change their mind. So we leave that possibility open, but on a space available basis. Our online registration link will be going out in April. You'll see that coming out. That'll be where you sign up for, you provide residency, your health forms, also an opportunity to sign up to support our parent programs, the different parent programs that help support the student experiences through fundraising and other supports. In the 3rd week in July, schedules go out, and I know this is a really big time. As the person who puts together the master schedule, I know that like the curtain's pulled back at that point and everybody sees their schedule, and I want to make sure there aren't any mistakes in that because it's tough to move things around. But when schedules go out, there will be a link to a Google form where you can say, you know what, my son or daughter had a cool experience over the summer, or they fell in love with engineering. We'd like to see if it's still available to change my courses and maybe add or drop a course. We leave that last opportunity open, even though it's more work for our counselors. They really want to make sure that when your sons or daughters enter the high school in August, they have that schedule that they really want and they're excited about everything in there. So we really try to exhaust every opportunity to make sure that when you hit the ground running, they're excited and there aren't any obstacles or impediments to the start of the school year. All students are part of a core team. You'll see, obviously, the counselors were assigned by an alpha split. That gives us the opportunity to, our counselors to stay with students for the 4 years, as well as the whole core team. I really like the core team structure. We didn't have that at my previous high school. Each core team is comprised of a counselor, a social worker, a school psychologist. I run the core teams, and then there's one of the 2 deans is on there as well. And we meet weekly. Each of the 3 core teams meet weekly to go over students that are struggling. We have universal screeners. We run DF reports every 4 weeks. We also have, through Power School and David Hain, who is our MTSS coordinator, who has created some amazing tools, the ability to run reports daily, weekly, that give us a sense of what students, through a combination of metrics around missing assignments, GPA, attendance, who are the students that should be red flags, and how do we keep them on our radar or proactively interact with them to avoid a slide academically or socially, emotionally. So these core teams meet weekly. We review we review student cases. We look at students that might potentially have some obstacles. We also have the opportunity to talk about students whose parents might have called the counselor to say, you know, so-and-so is going to have a surgery. They're going to be out for the next 3 weeks. We really have a finger on the pulse of what's going on with the students and our families, and we plan accordingly. And a counselor may jump in and say, I'll handle this situation. The social worker might say, I'll jump in and handle this situation. Typically, the counselor, the social worker, and the school psychologist provide social emotional support. Typically, the counselor is the one who provides the academic guidance. If you have a question about any of those roles or how your son or daughter can gain service, call the counselor first. Let the counselor be your anchor throughout the course of those 4 years. The counselors meet with their students once a quarter. What's really nice about our structure here is, at my previous district, counselors would meet with their students once a quarter, but they'd meet with all their freshmen one period on a day, so they'd meet with their 55 or so freshmen, and then they'd meet with their 55 or 60 sophomores, and it would all be in one large gathering. Our counselors say we're going to meet once with all of our students in a small group setting, so they will have 8 periods of meeting with their students. So they'll meet with 5 or 6 freshmen, and then they'll do the same thing second period and third period and fourth period, so that they really get have the opportunity to get to know their students as individuals and learners, so that by the time they're starting to have conversations junior and into senior year about post-secondary, they're able to guide them based on, you know, the knowledge they have. Our social workers and our school psychologists provide social emotional support, and that's always an opportunity. If you reach out to the counselor and say, you know, you'd be interested in your son or daughter having some of that, they'll connect you with the social worker or the school psychologist. Dr. Waller talked about the supports that students have, so I'm not going to highlight everything. He mentioned the resource centers. Our resource centers are thriving areas where students go on during study halls or periods where they are open before and after school. One thing I would highlight, these are opportunities that all students have. It really is about reaching out to the counselor and saying, you know what, I see that there's a peer tutoring opportunity. How can my son or daughter be hooked up with that? And the counselor will direct you to the appropriate resource. The EF tutoring, you'll see that executive functioning is a programming that we've installed in the last 6 to 7 years, using an evidence-based program around the skills and strategies that are needed for students to have the organizational, the time management, the study skills needed to support their learning across all the different classes that they're in. We provide executive functioning tutoring after school 3 days a week. We also have a course that is designed to provide executive functioning skills. That's more of a targeted population that we provide that for. But we also have within our resource centers executive functioning opportunities as well. So if you're interested in your son or daughter having executive functioning tutoring, reach out to the counselor again, and they can connect you with the right person. I would mention just the PLT. So if you haven't seen the schedule at Lake Forest High School yet, we are a modified or a hybrid block schedule. So we have 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, that are scout days, and those are all 8 periods, 50 minutes a period. And then Wednesdays and Thursdays are block days, so you go Wednesday to period 2, 4, 6, and 8 for 75 minutes, and then on Thursdays you go to 1, 3, 5, and 7 for 75 minutes, and it's an opportunity to do a deeper dive into the curriculum, do some projects, labs, and things like that. And so it really is a nice blend. Think about what Wednesdays and Thursdays feel like for your son and daughter compared to Mondays, Tuesdays, and Fridays. On scout days, the all 8 periods, they have 10 passing periods. So 10 5-minute periods. They have to pick up their stuff, go from one class, get to another space, sit down, and become available to learn. That's halved on block days, and so it's a kind of a smoother transition day. It's more of a relaxed, almost a collegiate environment during those days. Our students really, really enjoy them. We do start an hour late on both Wednesdays and Thursdays. Wednesdays is PLT time, so teachers are in their classrooms from 8 to 9, and students can go and access one-to-one or small group help with those teachers based on their choice. And then on Thursdays, we start late so that our staff can collaborate with one another. They do an hour of collaboration and professional development each week. Our more tier 2 and 3 supports are really more individualized or small group supports. And these are different programs either for social and emotional support or for, as you see, enriched studies, which is our executive functioning class, and then our strategic reading, math, and the different interventions based on study skills, whether it be math or English related. Our NET program is a really cool program. You may find at a certain time during the 4 years with your son or daughter at the high school that they may have a surgery or be going through a situation that requires them to be removed from school for a period of time. Our NET program is that program that provides wraparound transition back services for students to say, okay, you may need a 3-week time transitioning back to the high school where you just need kind of an anchor in your day, and we're going to take your study hall, and instead of your study hall, you're going to go to the NET program where there are staff there to provide academic recovery plans and support, liaison with teachers, really reaching out so that for whatever prescribed period of time your son or daughter needs to transition back to the high school, they have an adult right there to be their anchor, in addition to their core team. that is the support throughout. Okay, so now I'm going to transition to special education. If you have a son or daughter that is a student with an IEP, you've probably been through much of this information. We have IEP facilitators, 3 of them on staff, and their role is to facilitate all things related to your son or daughter's IEP. So it's all of the paperwork, it's the communication with home, it's communication with teachers and staff to understand what the IEP for your son or daughter looks like and how it plays out in the classroom and what the accommodations and any modified curriculum look like. They train classroom staff to be able to develop the skills to meet the needs of students, and they assure the compliance and with procedural requirements. There's a lot on here. Didn't make the slide, but it's a nice infographic. It is kind of the whole wheel of everything. Again, inclusive special education supports are around the necessary curricular or modified curriculum adaptations, whatever assistive technology a student may need, related service delivery, speech language, social emotional, whether co-teaching environment is needed for the student to be successful, interventions and personalized supports based on learner profiles, and then executive functioning as well. So from the standpoint of inclusion related to the special education department, much of what is designed throughout the planning in the spring around the schedule and placing students in the best possible environment is understanding what students are interested in signing up for, what classes they're recommended for, and then finding the environment that best supports them as a learner. We have co-taught classes, which are classes that are taught by a special ed teacher and a gen ed teacher, and a lot of the work that Dr. Wallert and Dr. Sturpen have done over the last several years is making that co-teaching model, as seamless as possible, so that the teachers are working together to provide instruction that they're really, if you walked into a classroom and looked at the co-teaching model, you wouldn't be able to say, I can tell who's the special ed teacher and who's the gen ed teacher. We also have co-facilitated classes, which are classes where there is a teacher, a gen ed teacher, and an aide, a TA, that is also there to provide small group instruction and provide the supports for students who need a little bit more of a supportive environment. That being said, we are about fostering increased independence. So the model with any of these, whether it be executive functioning interventions, social emotional interventions, or academic interventions, the goal is to build the skills for students to gain the independence so that the interventions can be faded over time and that students have developed the skills that then allow them to transition independently to post-secondary education. I'm done. I will invite Ashley Malik to come up and talk about student activities.
Thank you, sir. Hi, I'm Ashley Malik. I'm the Student Activities Director and our Theater Instructional Director. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about getting your students involved just right from the get-go. Some things that we have, our Career Connections program, which is happening actually tomorrow. We start with a Scouting Your Future profile for the kids. So what we did last year was we pulled all of our students and said, these are like the hottest, most up-and-coming jobs in different careers that are coming out of the pandemic, things that are really growing, things that are like mental health, cybersecurity, since we're all online now. And so we created a panel of Google Meets with different professionals. And there were 10 different panels. One of them, my favorite one, was actually thanks to Melissa Oakley, her son. Her son is exactly 10 years out of high school. And so we did a Scouts 10 years out profile with, or panel with all of our alumni that were within 10 years of graduation from the high school so that our kids could relate to, one, what class did you take to get this internship? Is an internship important? What did you major in? All of those questions that they're kind of brewing on and not quite sure, that they were able to really kind of get good feedback from what our students are doing now, because some of the kids, you know, like they're not all moved out immediately. They don't jump into a job that has a 401k. They need to kind of earn their stripes a little bit. And so it's good for our kids to get a realistic picture of what it's going to look like, not only post-graduation from Lake Forest High School, but also post-graduation from college or sometimes going into the military. And so other things we're doing, so tomorrow is actually Open Doors. Open Doors is an opportunity where we send students out to workplaces and businesses all over Lake County and sometimes into Chicago. Chicago has gotten more complicated recently. And so what we did actually was we hooked up with the Chamber of Commerce and we said, local businesses, can you help us? What do you got? How can our students learn about being an entrepreneur? Or what does Lake Forest Bookstore look like in the back room? Like, how does this live? How does owning a small business work? And then Uline is opening up for technology and talking about cybersecurity and letting our students shadow. I was on the phone with actually the Lake County Circuit Court this morning. We have students that are shadowing 10 different judges one-on-one all day tomorrow. So it's just really, really unique. And it's giving students an idea, here's what a day in the life looks like. Is this actually what you thought it was? Because sometimes a lot of kids say, I want to go into engineering. They don't realize there's like 12 different kinds of engineering. So you can't just say that, like what's mechanical, what's environmental. Like you really need to kind of have an idea of how this lives, because a lot of times students think that a major will connect to a particular job, but what they don't really realize is what steps individuals have taken in their professional journey to get to where they are, because sometimes doors open and you just have to say yes, and half of it is networking. And so it's really starting that big picture connection for the students that relates to things like our business incubator courses. So things that they're learning in class enhanced by experiences outside of the class is really what the Open Doors program is about. Our next thing we're hosting on March 2nd is actually, we changed the name, we rebranded. It's Scouting Your Summer. We're trying to be a little more parallel with how we started this summer, or started this fall. So Scouting Your Summer is actually gonna be hosting summer jobs, internships, and volunteer opportunities. Everyone who's coming will have something to offer our students. So the students will know they can apply for internships, jobs, a lot of lifeguarding jobs in the area, and volunteer hours. Something that has kind of hit our kids during the pandemic is a lot of our typical go-to volunteer spots have created there's new mitigations, there's new restrictions on group sizes, opportunities. Last summer looked very different. And so our students are kind of struggling because part of it is they want service hours for NHS or different components that they're trying to earn these recognitions for. Others are, our kids are just really good people. They're really good kids. My favorite thing is I had a student last year for Project Full, our food drive. He was a Boy Scout and he showed up with the entire back of his SUV, just boxes and boxes of food. And I was like, what? Thank you. Like, so I asked him, I was like, what did you do this for? And he's like, well, I just knew you were doing a food drive. I had never spoken to him until he called me and said, I have a couple boxes of food, and I didn't realize I needed a big flat cart to load up twice with all the food he had. Well, he had taken our flyer, put it on every single door of his neighborhood and said, I'll be back next Saturday to pick things up. If you've got anything you want to donate, put it on the porch, put it in this bag. And apparently he did this regularly. So and I track our service hours at the high school. He had never documented any of this. He just did it. It was just something that he was like, it's just the right thing to do. Like, yeah, wow, okay. So it was interesting. So I met him, and it's just, that's the kind of stuff that we try to help our students see the bigger picture, but also to allow their local business opportunities that can really benefit from having our kids, just both sides. The kids are learning from them, and the kids are giving back to the community. So, because we ask the community for a lot, and it's nice to kind of give them some. So other things we have, this is actually, student activities is our clubs, extracurriculars, all things that happen outside of the class day. And so we fall into different categories. So there's academic, there's social, leadership, creative, advocacy. We have over 45 clubs. We actually have 53 clubs this year, and all of our clubs are meeting after school or before school, so it allows the students to kind of decide when they want to participate. A lot of them are open membership. It's usually the leadership organizations that require students to attend. So it's very, very common for a student who plays soccer in the fall to join art club in the winter and then go to lacrosse in the spring. Super common. My big encouragement for kids is stay connected to something year-round. Our biggest goal is that trying to get 90% of our students engaged. Right now, we have 92.4% of our freshmen engaged. And so that's super exciting to me because it shows me that they are excited to be at the high school. They kind of took a chance because I know last year the past 2 years has been really unique, but it's not stopping their interest. It's not stopping their need to connect as a community. And I think a lot of times I get emails from parents where they're like, hey, my son or daughter doesn't really hang out with anyone on the weekend. Like, can you help see what's going on? It's very, very common for me to pull kids out of study halls and talk to them one-on-one. They're transfer kids, they're just struggling, or they didn't make the team they thought they were gonna be on, and they're just trying to find a new friend group. It's super common that I will pull them and just talk to them and be like, what are you interested in? Well, that kind of aligns with this. I either go based on interest, or I'll ask them, what day of the week are you free? Because sometimes they're like, I'm only free on Wednesday. I go to these other places on these days. And so then I can say, well, there's 6 clubs that meet on Wednesday. Do any of these sound interesting? And so it's nice because our clubs are very much used to kids coming and going as they need to. You don't have to email anyone if you have homework. But if I could tell you anything, I would tell you to tell your incoming freshmen to get involved right away. It becomes more daunting, I think, to walk into a classroom later on in the year. They think that homework's gonna be overwhelming. They think they just wanna get their bearings, and kind of that's generally what they tell us, is they just wanna get used to high school first. But start on as many things as you are interested in and then pull back. That first month or 2 is really crucial for them feeling connected to our community, and that really helps them enjoy their time there. We want them, extracurriculars is a tough one. I need them to want to stay at school longer. Like that's our ask, is just trying to get them to want to be in these spaces. And so that is one of those things that really builds a community, because in biology, it's not the easiest to sit and be like, what are you doing this weekend? You gotta do what you need to do in class that day. But if you're building in tech, my tech is always my easiest one, because you're building something physically for the set, but you are talking naturally, and there's not that pressure of like, I'm staring at you and we need to have a conversation right now. It's, we're gonna build this, and we naturally build this relationship and friendship over time. So these are all of our clubs that are running right now. Stitch Club is a new one and a fun one. We're currently looking for higher quality yarn, thicker yarn if you have any. We're looking for donations. They actually started out of the pandemic because they said, I picked up knitting again. My grandma taught me years ago, and a student was like, it's really relaxing. There's like 17 students in that club every 2 weeks. It's incredible. They are busting out hats left and right. It's so cool. And even last night at Scout Experience, their poster board had little pom-poms they all made. And so it had like the little knit pom-poms all the way around. I'm like, you guys are wonderful. I think it says something too, that our clubs that are popping up, our new ones, Charity Club and Give Club, are clubs all about giving back. Give is giving back on an international level. Charity Club is trying to take all these opportunities that we need to give back to our local community and spreading the word. So it's kind of interesting to see like what hits each year, what kids are interested in. So it's just been really cool to kind of see it all play out, and I think there's just something here for everyone. Our academic clubs compete, but just because you go to debate doesn't mean you have to attend the competitions. You can just participate, you can help, you can do research, you can question people and make their arguments stronger, but you don't have to go out and compete if you don't want to. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. Athletic programs, we have 33 athletic programs. I'm not the athletic director, but I can speak to this. And they go really in the fall, winter, and spring. It depends on if your student wants to do off-season lifting, things like that. That is completely up to them. But we do have a variety of freshman level teams, which is really nice. So we do have like a JVA, JVB, things like that. That'll help get your kids engaged. If they're not super competitive, but they just want to play basketball or flag football, we have intramurals as well. Yes. Yeah.
So what it'll look like if your son or daughter signed up for an a sport last night, they will be contacted in the next several weeks around summer programming opportunities. So oftentimes athletic teams run camps during the summer, and those typically are 2 to 3 week in duration. Obviously, it's not mandatory to be a part of the summer program if you're going to try out in the fall, winter, or spring, but it is an opportunity to participate at the high school, get to know some kids, and continue the sport that they love. There will be information coming out to all families around summer school, as Dr. Waller mentioned, and from Tim Burkhalter, our athletic director, around what summer camps look like through athletics. So pay attention to that, and if you have any questions at all, Tim Burkhalter is the athletic director, and he can help with that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, so the question was, for at-home audience, if a student did not sign up for a club last night, can they still join? Yes. In the fall, we actually have a club fair during book pickup as well, so we'll do that thing again. And we will let them know as it gets closer to the year, hey guys, here's what's available, here we want you to join. Same thing though, it honestly is not unusual for students to walk into a club the first week and they've never been there. Like, it's very, very common. I see significant shifts in attendance sheets based on sports seasons. So once football's over, like, those guys are going to history club or whatever it may be. So it's very, very common that clubs kind of pick up an ebb and flow based on kids and what they're involved in. So, yeah, no
Ms.
problem.
Malik, did you mention how to apply for a pilot club status? Did you go through that?
Yeah, so if we
you ever-
don't have a club that your student is interested in, pilot clubs are available beginning of the year until October 1st. So that's actually so the clubs that were highlighted, those are the pilot clubs, like History Club, Stitch Club. And a pilot club runs for a year, basically as a trial run to see how membership goes, following guidelines, they're meeting once a month, they're keeping attendance, and that they have a sponsor that is also there and helping them and supporting them. And so those students are able to run, and if it's successful and they meet all of our guidelines, they go before the stipend committee and they get evaluated based on some metrics that are posted on our website. And then they're either approved to be a full-time club or are no longer a club that's run at the high school. So, yeah. Yes, so Big to Little actually goes out to North Chicago Community Partnership, those elementary schools, and they mentor the little kids. So our kids are the bigs, and they mentor the littles through like different playing games, taking turns, like doing different socialization like activities with the little kids. Scout Buddies works with our ESL, nope, here we go, ESL students, so our students with special needs. So, and it's forming more authentic friendships and having them hang out. So like, we just got them a karaoke machine because they like to do dance parties. So that's in-house. That's all of our students just engaging together. Good.
And time for questions, because we do have some time left. So with that, you've learned a lot, right, between the Scout experience and of course hearing from our team about all that we have to offer. And I think there are just some key takeaways that I hope every parent walks away from the presentation with. First of all, just making sure you understand, especially as you go through course registration in the next 4 years, you're partnering with your dynamic counselor who is a college and career counselor, that you are ensuring that your student stays balanced throughout the 4 years, because there's so much to do. I mean, I'll stop in the hallway, in the afternoon and chat with students who are on their way to clubs, and they're like, there's just so much to do. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, and it's important you know your student. You are your child's first teacher. You know your student better than anyone. Make sure you're coaching your student. Make sure that you're ensuring your student stays as balanced as they can. Explore. It's fun. You'll see students who will be like, I've never thought about diving. Diving's scary, by the way, to watch, but for me anyway, but I've never thought about diving. And then they'll just try diving, or they'll try swimming. They'll try something, especially at freshman and sophomore level, because we have so many levels. And they'll try volleyball. They'll try something new, make friends, and maybe even find a passion that they didn't know that they would have. We have a bass fishing club. I mean, like, that is amazing that we have bass fishing. And I don't know if you were at Scout Experience, I was like, I want to be in high school and sign up for things right now, because there's just so many awesome opportunities. Encourage them. you know, maybe they're trying to figure out what their passions are. Maybe there are things there that typically you at home would not have, like guitar making. I don't know how to make a guitar. Just encourage them to explore what we have to offer. Make sure that they understand that it's about growing in high school. It's not necessarily about having the answer, it's about the journey towards the answer, right? These are 13 and 14-year-olds when they enter. Make sure that they understand it's not about perfection, it's about progress, and let's encourage that as a community. I've had students I've asked students in my advisory council and then gone into classrooms, and I've had them say to me, Dr. Leonard, if you really want to help us, just help us help our parents understand that we're here and we want to be in high school. They'll say that to me. We just want to be in high school and we want to have a good time in high school and we want to experience what high school's about. So help me in continuing and prioritizing that message too. Also, we have, and too bad we did not bring our brochures with us, because we have an awesome structure of supports for students who maybe are encountering some struggles as far as academics, or even, again, they can't find their group of friends with the clubs and activities. Make sure that you keep your finger on the pulse of those supports. If you did not get the opportunity to see the brochure or get the brochure that lists them all out, they are listed on our website as well. You know, the more savvy you are with regards to what we have in place, you can help support your student too. So make sure that you familiarize yourself with those things. You know, it's hard to look at a 13 or 14-year-old and go, have you looked at the supports in place? They'll say, what are you talking about? You know, but if you know what those are, you can say, so I hear there's executive functioning. Well, they'll probably say, well, what is that too? Well, I hear there's some help that can be given to you after school on Tuesdays if you're having a hard time organizing your calendar. And they'll jump right on it, right? Tuesdays after school. Get involved too as a parent. We have lots of dynamic organizations with the foundation, with PALS, with Applause, with our APT at the high school level. We want to hear your voice. We want to see you at the meetings. We want to hear you asking us tough questions, and then also supporting the school and the narrative to the community and with the community too. And then just enjoy it. New to high school, I mean, it's been a while for me. My daughter's 24, so I remember sitting in your seat, and I was even in a high school working. But enjoy it. It flies by. Before you know it, they're grown. My daughter's supposed to be getting engaged in the next month. You know, you're thinking about things like that, and it feels like the world just flew past. So parent to parent, enjoy the journey. We're all here to do this together. So with that, that's the end, but we will